I switched seats on a flight because a flight attendant told me to, and that split-second decision saved me from being framed for an international crime I knew nothing about. My name is Vanessa Mills. I'm 29 years old, and I work as a software engineer in Austin, Texas. I'm the kind of person who follows rules, stays organized, and avoids drama at all costs. I grew up with my dad, Robert Mills, a retired Marine who taught me discipline and to always think before I act. So when something completely unexpected happened on a routine flight to London, every instinct I had was screaming at me that something was very wrong. It was a rainy Thursday evening when I boarded Flight 447 from New York to London. I was traveling alone for a tech conference, my first international work trip. I was nervous but excited. My seat was 14B, a middle seat I'd specifically been assigned when my company's travel coordinator booked the flight just 3 days earlier. It was the only available seat on a packed flight. As I settled in and pulled out my book, a flight attendant approached with a drink cart. Her name tag said Patricia Hayes. She was probably in her mid-50s, with kind eyes and the calm confidence of someone who'd been doing this job for years. She leaned down close to me, her face completely neutral, and placed a small folded napkin on my tray table. I looked down. Written in blue pen were 5 words that would change everything. Switch seats. Don't ask questions. Before I could even look up, Patricia was already moving away with her cart, walking quickly down the aisle. My heart started pounding. I glanced around. Nobody else seemed to notice. The college kid next to me in 14A had his headphones on, already half asleep. The aisle seat was empty. I looked back toward Patricia. She was standing near the galley, and when our eyes met, she gave me the smallest nod and glanced meaningfully toward the back of the plane. Row 22, an empty window seat. I sat there frozen, the napkin in my hand, my mind racing. Flight attendants don't just tell passengers to switch seats for no reason. This wasn't normal, but the look on Patricia's face wasn't a joke. It was urgent, almost desperate. Before we go any further, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. Let me tell you a little more about myself so you understand why this whole situation was so far outside my comfort zone. I've always been a rule follower. Growing up with my dad, a Marine who ran our household like a well-organized mission, there was no room for chaos. Everything had a place. Everything had a purpose. And you didn't question authority when someone with more experience gave you an order. That's how I was raised. After my mom passed away when I was 12, it was just me and Dad. He taught me to be strong, independent, and cautious. Trust your instincts, he'd always say, but also trust people who know more than you do. I carried that mindset into my career. I became a cybersecurity engineer for a tech startup called SecureNet. My job was to analyze threats, protect data, and think 3 steps ahead of hackers and criminals. I spent my days looking for vulnerabilities, identifying risks, and solving problems with logic and evidence. I wasn't impulsive. I didn't make rash decisions. Everything I did was calculated. This trip to London was a big deal for me. It was an international cybersecurity conference, and my boss had specifically chosen me to represent our company. I'd never traveled overseas for work before. I was excited, but also anxious about flying alone, navigating a foreign city, presenting in front of hundreds of industry experts. I'd packed and repacked my suitcase 3 times. I'd printed my boarding pass even though I had the digital version on my phone. I wanted everything to go smoothly. The flight itself was packed. Business travelers typing on laptops, families with tired kids, tourists excited about their vacations. I'd boarded in the middle of the pack and made my way to row 14. As I walked down the aisle, I noticed a man sitting in 17C. He stood out because he looked so uncomfortable. He was probably in his early 40s, wearing a wrinkled dress shirt, and he was sweating even though the cabin was cool. He was clutching a leather briefcase against his chest, like it contained something precious. His eyes kept darting around, watching other passengers board, his leg bouncing nervously. Something about him made me uneasy, but I told myself I was just being paranoid. Lots of people are nervous flyers. I found my seat, 14B, and squeezed past the college kid already settled in 14A. He had his headphones on and barely acknowledged me. The aisle seat, 14C, was still empty. I stowed my carry-on in the overhead bin, sat down, buckled my seatbelt, and tried to relax. That's when Patricia came by with her drink cart. I was pulling my book out of my bag when she stopped next to my row. She didn't say anything at first. She just leaned down, placed that folded napkin on my tray table, and kept moving. The whole interaction took maybe 5 seconds, but those 5 seconds felt heavy, loaded with meaning I didn't understand yet. I unfolded the napkin under the edge of my book so nobody else could see. Switch seats. Don't ask questions. My hands started to shake. I read it 3 times, making sure I wasn't misunderstanding. Why would she want me to switch seats? Was there something wrong with this seat? Was there a maintenance issue? But then, why write a note instead of just telling me? I looked up and found Patricia standing near the front galley. She was watching me. When she saw me looking, she glanced toward the back of the plane, then back at me. The message was clear. Move. Now. Don't make a scene. Every logical part of my brain was screaming questions. What's happening? Why can't she just tell me? What if this is some kind of mistake? But my dad's voice was in my head too. When someone with experience tells you to act, you act. You ask questions later. I grabbed my bag and quietly stood up. The college kid didn't even notice. I walked toward the back of the plane, my heart racing, trying to look casual. Row 22. The window seat, 22A, was empty. I slid in, shoved my bag under the seat in front of me, and buckled up. My hands were still shaking. Patricia appeared almost immediately, carrying a blanket. She leaned down and placed it on my lap. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Thank you. Stay here. Don't go back." Then she was gone, continuing down the aisle with her cart like nothing had happened. I sat there completely stunned, trying to process what just happened. I looked back toward row 14. A man was standing in the aisle. It was him, the nervous guy from 17C with the briefcase. He looked confused, checking his phone, then looking at the seat numbers. Then he sat down in 14B, my old seat. He placed his briefcase carefully under the seat in front of him, gripping it tight even after he sat down. My stomach dropped. Patricia had moved me away from that man. But why? Who was he? What was in that briefcase? And why did it matter where I was sitting? The plane's engines started up. The flight attendants began their safety demonstration. I couldn't focus on any of it. All I could do was stare at the back of that man's head 3 rows ahead of me, watching him grip the armrests with white knuckles, his whole body tense. Something was very, very wrong, and I had no idea what I'd just walked into. The plane taxied down the runway and lifted off into the rainy New York sky. Normally, I love takeoff. There's something exciting about that moment when the wheels leave the ground and you're suddenly flying. But this time, I couldn't enjoy it. My stomach was in knots. I kept my eyes locked on row 14, watching the man who was now sitting in my original seat. He hadn't relaxed at all. His hands were still gripping the armrests so tight I could see the tension in his shoulders from 3 rows back. He wasn't reading, wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting there, staring straight ahead, breathing hard, like he was trying to calm himself down. I tried to focus on my book, but the words blurred together. My mind kept spinning. Why did Patricia move me? What did she know? I watched her move through the cabin, offering drinks and snacks to passengers, but I noticed something strange. Every time she passed row 14, she slowed down just slightly. Her eyes would flick toward the man, then away. She was watching him, and it wasn't just her. Marcus, another flight attendant, a younger guy with dark hair, was doing the same thing. They were coordinating, making eye contact with each other across the cabin, communicating in that silent way that experienced crew members do. This wasn't random concern. This was surveillance. About 30 minutes into the flight, the man suddenly pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. He started typing frantically, his thumbs moving fast across the screen. Then he stopped, stared at whatever message he'd received, and his face went pale. He looked around the cabin, his eyes wild, searching for something or someone, Then he stood up abruptly, bumping into the college kid next to him hard enough to wake him up. "Excuse me, I need the bathroom," he mumbled, grabbing his briefcase. He didn't wait for a response. He just pushed past the kid and rushed toward the back lavatory, nearly tripping over someone's bag in the aisle. He disappeared into the bathroom, taking the briefcase with him. That's when Patricia appeared next to my seat. She crouched down low so other passengers wouldn't hear her. Her professional smile was gone. She looked serious, almost scared. "I need you to listen very carefully and stay calm," she whispered. "That man was supposed to sit next to someone specific on this flight. You. We received an anonymous tip before boarding that a passenger in seat 14B was being targeted for something illegal. We didn't have enough time to verify the information or remove anyone from the flight without causing a panic, so I made the decision to move you. You cannot let him know you were supposed to be in that seat. Do you understand?" My mouth went completely dry. I could barely get the words out. "Targeted? What do you mean targeted?" Patricia glanced back toward the bathroom, then back at me. "We believe he's transporting something illegal, and someone on this plane is supposed to receive it from him. If you'd stayed in that seat, you might have been mistaken for his contact, or worse, you could have been set up to take the fall for whatever he's carrying." The room started spinning. This couldn't be real. I was just going to a conference. I was just sitting in my assigned seat. How could I be involved in something illegal? The bathroom door opened and the man came out. He looked even worse than before. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his face was red, and his hands were trembling as he carried the briefcase back to his seat. He sat down in 14B, placed the briefcase under the seat again, and immediately pulled out his phone. He started typing again, then stopped. He looked at the college kid sitting next to him in 14A, really looked at him like he was studying his face. Then he leaned over and whispered something. The kid pulled out his headphones, looking annoyed and confused. "What?" he said. The man's voice got louder, urgent. "You're supposed to give me the signal. That's what she said. You're in 14B, right?" The college kid looked at him like he was crazy. "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm in 14A. I don't know you." The man's face turned bright red. His breathing got faster. He stood up suddenly, his voice rising loud enough that other passengers started turning around to look. No. She told me to sit in 14B. She said the contact would be right next to me. Where is she? Where's the woman who was supposed to be here?" He was scanning the entire cabin now, his eyes moving from row to row, looking at every passenger. Patricia and Marcus were already moving toward him, their faces calm, but their movements quick and deliberate. "Sir, you need to sit down," Patricia said in that firm but polite voice flight attendants use when things are getting out of control. But the man wasn't listening. He was spiraling, panicking. "Someone moved. Someone switched seats. She told me exactly where to sit. The woman in 14B was supposed to be here." He was shouting now, and my heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Other passengers were pulling out their phones, some recording, some looking scared. A mother pulled her child closer. An older man stood up like he was ready to help restrain someone if needed. And then the man's eyes landed on me. He was 3 rows away, but I saw the exact moment he registered my face. His expression changed. Recognition, confusion, anger. He pointed directly at me. You were sitting here before. I saw you. Where did you go? Why did you move?" Every eye in the cabin turned toward me. I couldn't breathe. I pressed myself back against the window, my hands gripping the armrests. Patricia stepped between us, blocking his view of me. "Sir, sit down right now or we will have you restrained." Her voice had lost all warmth. This was a command, not a request. But the man was beyond reason. He shoved past her, still pointing at me, his voice breaking. "She was supposed to be next to me. She has to be next to me. That's what they told me. I can't mess this up." That's when everything exploded. The cabin erupted into chaos. Passengers were standing up, trying to see what was happening. Some were shouting for the man to calm down. Others were recording everything on their phones. A flight attendant's voice came over the intercom, firm and steady. "Everyone, please remain seated and calm. We have the situation under control." But it didn't feel under control. The man was still standing in the aisle, his face twisted with panic and rage, staring at me like I'd personally ruined his entire life. Patricia and Marcus had positioned themselves between him and my row, but he kept trying to see around them. I need to talk to her. She has to understand. They're going to kill me if I don't deliver this. That's when a man stood up from first class. He was wearing jeans and a plain polo shirt, looking like any other passenger. But something about the way he moved was different, purposeful, controlled. He walked down the aisle with complete confidence. And as he got closer to Patricia, he pulled something from his pocket and flashed it quickly. A badge. FBI, I'll take it from here. My heart nearly stopped. FBI? There was an FBI agent on this plane? Patricia stepped aside immediately, relief washing over her face. The agent looked at the panicking man and his voice was calm but carried absolute authority. Sir, I'm Agent Torres. I need you to sit down right now and hand over the briefcase. This doesn't have to get worse than it already is. The man's eyes went wide. He looked at Agent Torres, then at the briefcase still under seat 14B, then back at the agent. No, you don't understand. I have to deliver this. I was paid to deliver this. She was supposed to be in that seat. He pointed at me again, his hand shaking. The woman in 14B, Vanessa Mills, that's who I'm supposed to give this to. The sound of my own name coming out of his mouth made my blood run cold. How did he know my name? Agent Torres didn't react with surprise. He just nodded slowly. I know, but the woman you're looking for isn't on this plane anymore. We moved her. Your contact isn't coming. Whatever arrangement you had, it's over. Now sit down and hand over the briefcase before this gets much worse for you. The man looked around the cabin desperately, like he was searching for an escape route on a plane flying at 35,000 feet. There was nowhere to go. His shoulders sagged and tears started running down his face. They're going to kill me. I took their money. If I don't deliver this, they're going to kill me. He sank back into seat 14B, his whole body shaking, but he still wouldn't let go of the briefcase. Agent Torres moved closer, his hand out. Give me the briefcase. Right now. I can protect you, but only if you cooperate. The man hesitated, then slowly pulled the briefcase from under the seat and handed it over. His face was buried in his hands and he was sobbing. Patricia appeared at my seat again, her voice urgent and quiet. I need you to come with me to the galley right now. Bring your bag. I stood on shaky legs and followed her, feeling every eye in the cabin watching me. In the small galley area at the back of the plane, Marcus was already there, and Agent Torres joined us moments later, carrying the briefcase. He looked at me directly. Ms. Mills, I'm Special Agent Torres with the FBI. I need you to tell me exactly how you booked this flight. Every detail. Who arranged it? What website you used? When it was booked? Everything. My voice came out barely above a whisper. My company's travel coordinator booked it for me. Her name is Linda Chen. She's booked all my work travel for the past 2 years. She sent me the confirmation 3 days ago. I didn't choose the seat myself. It was just assigned to me. Agent Torres exchanged a look with Patricia, then pulled out his phone and started typing notes. Did Linda have access to your personal information? Your full name, date of birth, passport details? I nodded. She has all of that. It's in the company's travel system. Everyone who travels for work has their information in there. Agent Torres set the briefcase on the small galley counter. I'm going to open this now. I need you to look at what's inside and tell me if you recognize anything. He clicked open the latches and lifted the lid. Inside were stacks of cash, rubber banded together, dozens of USB drives in a clear plastic bag, and 3 passports. He pulled out one of the passports and opened it. The photo inside made my stomach drop. It was a woman who looked like me. Similar brown hair, similar build, wearing glasses like I sometimes wore. But it wasn't me. The face was just different enough. The name on the passport said, Vanessa Mills. My name. But that wasn't my photo. Someone had created a fake identity using my real name, and a woman who resembled me enough to pass a quick glance. Agent Torres watched my reaction carefully. You've been identity cloned. Someone was supposed to board this flight using your name and your seat assignment to receive this package from our friend Derek back there. But the real you showed up instead, which completely derailed their operation. I felt like I was going to be sick, but I don't understand. Why me? Why my name? Torres pulled out his phone again. That's what we need to figure out. I'm going to need to contact your company immediately and investigate this Linda Chen. My guess is someone hacked your company's travel system, or Linda herself is involved in this. Either way, you were set up to take the fall for whatever's on these USB drives and in this briefcase. Patricia put her hand on my shoulder. We're diverting to Boston. Agent Torres is taking Derek into custody the moment we land, and you'll need to come with us to give a full statement at the FBI office. My head was spinning. This was supposed to be a simple work trip. I was supposed to land in London, go to my conference, give my presentation, and come home. Now I was caught up in some FBI investigation involving fake passports and identity theft. What's on the USB drives? I asked, my voice barely steady. Agent Torres closed the briefcase. We won't know until we get them to our tech team, but based on the cash amount and the level of planning involved, I'd say corporate espionage. Someone is selling stolen information, probably proprietary data from your company or your clients, and they were planning to use you as the mule to transport it internationally. If you'd stayed in that seat and Derek had made contact with you, you'd have been arrested in London with this briefcase. You'd be facing federal charges right now instead of being a witness. The plane began its descent into Boston. I could feel the change in altitude, the slight tilt as we started going down. Through the galley curtain, I could see Derek still sitting in seat 14B, his head in his hands, two passengers who identified themselves as off-duty police officers sitting on either side of him to make sure he didn't try anything. The college kid had been moved to a different seat and looked absolutely traumatized. Other passengers were quiet now, the excitement replaced by nervous tension. Everyone knew something serious had happened, but most of them had no idea how serious. Patricia stayed close to me the entire descent. You did the right thing trusting me, she said quietly. If you'd ignored that note or made a scene, we wouldn't have been able to separate you from Derek without alerting whoever might have been watching. You staying calm and just moving gave us the time we needed to figure out what was happening. I looked at her, this woman I'd never met before today, who had somehow saved me from something I didn't even know I was walking into. How did you know? What made you suspicious enough to move me? She smiled, but it was tired. 20 years of flying. You see enough strange behavior. You develop instincts. Derek was wrong from the moment he boarded. And when I saw the seat changes in the system for your reservation, multiple changes in 24 hours, that's not normal passenger behavior. That's someone manipulating the system. I called it in. Agent Torres confirmed there was an active investigation, and I made the call to move you quietly. The plane touched down in Boston with a hard thump. Police vehicles were already waiting on the tarmac, their lights flashing in the darkness. The plane came to a complete stop, but nobody moved. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm and professional. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We have law enforcement boarding the aircraft. This is a routine procedure and there's no cause for alarm. Please keep your seatbelts fastened and stay in your seats. Through the small galley window, I could see police cars, FBI vehicles, and airport security surrounding the plane. The forward door opened and at least 6 agents in FBI jackets boarded, moving quickly down the aisle toward row 14. Derek didn't resist. He just sat there, crying, as they pulled him to his feet and handcuffed him. They read him his rights in low voices while passengers recorded everything on their phones. One agent picked up the briefcase from the galley where Agent Torres had left it, sealing it in an evidence bag. Agent Torres turned to me as they escorted Derek past us toward the exit. Ms. Mills, I need you to come with me. We have a car waiting to take you to our field office. This is going to be a long night, but I need everything you can tell me about Linda Chen, your company's security systems, and anyone who might have had access to your personal information. I grabbed my bag and followed him off the plane, my legs feeling like they might give out any second. Patricia walked with me to the door. Before I stepped off, she squeezed my hand. You're going to be okay. You're safe now. I wanted to say thank you, wanted to tell her she'd saved my life, but all I could manage was a nod before Agent Torres guided me down the stairs to a waiting black SUV. The FBI field office in Boston was nothing like what you see in movies. It was fluorescent lights, plain gray walls, and tired agents drinking coffee at midnight. They put me in a conference room with a bottle of water and a legal pad. Agent Torres sat across from me with another agent, a woman named Agent Kim. For the next 3 hours, I told them everything. How Linda had been my company's travel coordinator for 2 years. How she'd booked dozens of trips for me and other employees. How she had access to everyone's passport information, credit card details, travel preferences, everything. Agent Torres took notes on his laptop while Agent Kim recorded the conversation. Then, Agent Torres opened his laptop and turned it toward me. We've been investigating a corporate espionage ring for 8 months. Companies have been losing proprietary data, trade secrets, client information, and we couldn't figure out how it was being transported out of the country. Customs would flag suspicious passengers, but we never found anything. Then, 3 weeks ago, we got a tip from an informant that the next transfer was happening on a flight from New York to London. Seat 14B, passenger name Vanessa Mills. He pulled up a photo on his screen. It was a surveillance photo from an airport, showing a woman who looked like me, but wasn't me, going through security with a briefcase. This woman has used your identity 4 times in the past 6 months. Different flights, different destinations, always carrying data out of the country. We didn't know she wasn't the real you until your actual passport was scanned at JFK tonight, and our system flagged that the real Vanessa Mills was boarding the same flight we'd been monitoring. My hands went cold. Someone had been using my name, my identity, flying around the world pretending to be me, and I'd had no idea. Agent Kim leaned forward. Linda Chen gave this woman access to your identity. We believe Linda is part of a larger network that steals corporate data and sells it to competitors, foreign governments, anyone willing to pay. She identifies employees with travel schedules, clones their identities, and uses lookalikes to transport the stolen data. You were chosen because you travel internationally for work. You have security clearance at your company, and you fit the profile they needed. Agent Torres pulled up another screen. We've been monitoring Derek Lansing for 2 weeks. He's a courier, nothing more. He was paid to deliver that briefcase to who he thought was you. He's never met the woman using your identity. All his communication was through encrypted messages. He thought he was doing a simple handoff, grab some easy money, and walk away. He had no idea he was part of an espionage operation or that the FBI was watching the whole thing. I felt sick. So what happens now? Is this woman still out there using my name? Agent Torres nodded. She is, but not for long. We've been building this case for months, and tonight gave us everything we needed. Derek is already talking, giving us names, message logs, everything. And an hour ago, we executed a search warrant at Linda Chen's home in New Jersey. Agent Kim's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and smiled. They got her. Linda Chen is in custody. Relief flooded through me so intensely, I almost started crying. Agent Torres closed his laptop. The USB drives contained stolen cybersecurity protocols from your company, worth millions of dollars, client data, proprietary software, security vulnerabilities, everything a competitor would pay top dollar for. If the fake Vanessa Mills had received that briefcase in London, that data would be in the hands of a foreign tech company by tomorrow morning, and the real you would eventually be implicated when investigators started tracing the transactions. Linda made sure your digital footprint was all over this. Emails, travel bookings, even fake security footage from your office building. You were being set up to take the fall for everything. The reality of how close I'd come to having my entire life destroyed hit me like a truck. If Patricia hadn't moved me, if I'd stayed in that seat, if Derek had handed me that briefcase thinking I was his contact, I'd be in handcuffs right now instead of sitting safely in this FBI office. Agent Torres must have seen the panic on my face because his voice softened, but that didn't happen. You're safe. You're a witness, not a suspect. Patricia Hayes' instincts and quick thinking broke this whole case open. Derek panicking when you weren't where he expected gave us the confession we needed. And Linda getting arrested tonight means this entire operation is shut down. Agent Kim slid a business card across the table. You'll need to stay in Boston for a few days. We'll need more statements, and you'll probably have to testify when this goes to trial. We've already contacted your company and your father. He's flying up first thing in the morning. Hearing that my dad was coming made me finally break down. The tears I'd been holding back for hours just poured out. All the fear, confusion, and shock of the past few hours came crashing down. Agent Kim handed me a box of tissues and waited patiently while I pulled myself together. 2 agents drove me to a hotel near the airport at 3 in the morning. They posted security outside my room, just as a precaution. I sat on the bed, still in my clothes from the flight that felt like it happened a lifetime ago, and stared at my phone. 17 missed calls from my dad, 10 texts from my boss, 5 from coworkers asking if I was okay. News of what happened on the flight was already spreading. I called my dad. He answered on the first ring. "Vanessa, thank God. Are you okay? They told me you're safe, but I need to hear your voice." I started crying again. "I'm okay, Dad. I'm safe. It's over." His voice cracked. "I'm getting on the first flight out. I'll be there in a few hours. Don't go anywhere without those agents. You understand me?" I promised I wouldn't. We stayed on the phone until I finally fell asleep, exhausted, my dad's voice the only thing keeping the nightmares away. The next morning, my dad arrived at the hotel before I even woke up. The FBI agents let him in, and when I opened my eyes, he was sitting in the chair by the window, watching me like he used to when I was sick as a kid. He pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe, and for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt truly safe. We spent that whole day in the FBI office while I gave more detailed statements, looked at photos to confirm identities, and signed what felt like 100 documents. Agent Torres walked us through everything they'd discovered overnight. Linda Chen had confessed to everything within hours of being arrested. She'd been running this operation for almost 3 years, using employees from multiple companies to smuggle stolen data internationally. She'd made over $2 million selling corporate secrets. The woman who'd been using my identity was arrested at an airport in Frankfurt, Germany, trying to board another flight with a briefcase full of stolen pharmaceutical research. Her real name was Nina Volkov, a former corporate consultant who'd turned to industrial espionage when her legitimate business failed. She'd been paid $50,000 each time she successfully transported data using someone else's identity. She'd used my name and face 4 times, flying to London, Paris, Tokyo, and Singapore, carrying briefcases full of stolen information, while I had no idea my identity was being used on the other side of the world. The thought of it still makes my skin crawl. Derek Lansing, the panicked man from the flight, got a plea deal in exchange for his full cooperation. He gave the FBI names, locations, communication methods, everything. He was sentenced to 3 years in a minimum security prison. Agent Torres told me Derek was just a desperate guy who'd lost his job and made terrible choices when someone offered him easy money. I didn't feel sorry for him, but I understood how people convince themselves that what they're doing isn't really that bad until it all falls apart. Linda Chen wasn't as lucky. She was charged with corporate espionage, identity theft, fraud, and about a dozen other federal crimes. She was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. At her sentencing, I was there. She looked at me across the courtroom, and I saw something in her eyes. Not remorse, but surprise. Like she couldn't believe her perfect plan had fallen apart because a flight attendant noticed something was wrong. My company, SecureNet, was humiliated. Here they were, experts in cybersecurity, and they'd been compromised by their own travel coordinator for years. The CEO called me personally to apologize, and they offered me a promotion, a raise, anything to keep me from going public with how badly they'd failed to protect their employees. But I couldn't stay there. Every time I walked into that office, I'd think about Linda sitting at her desk, booking my flights, smiling at me in the break room, all while selling my identity to criminals. I gave them my resignation 2 weeks after the trial ended. They paid me a settlement to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and I walked away from that chapter of my life completely. I took 3 months off to process everything. I stayed with my dad at his place outside Austin, and we spent our evenings on the porch, like we used to when I was younger. He'd been terrified when he got the call from the FBI, and seeing me safe didn't fully calm his fears for weeks. He'd wake up in the middle of the night to check that I was still there, still okay. We talked through everything, and he helped me see that I'd survived because I'd trusted my instincts and listened when someone tried to help me. "You could have ignored Patricia's note," he said one night. "You could have demanded explanations, made a scene, refused to move, but you trusted her, and that trust saved your life. That's good instincts, Vanessa. Don't lose that." Patricia and I stayed in close contact. I flew to New York a month after everything settled down, and we met for coffee near her home in Queens. She told me she'd been scared too, that moving me without getting official clearance first could have gotten her fired if things had gone wrong. "But I've been doing this job for 20 years, she said, stirring her coffee. "I've seen drunk passengers, medical emergencies, mechanical failures, all of it. You develop a sense for when something's wrong. Derek was wrong from the second he stepped on that plane, and when I saw your seat had been changed multiple times in the system, I knew someone was manipulating things. I couldn't prove it, but I knew you needed to be moved. I just hoped I was making the right call." I reached across the table and took her hand. "You saved me. You risked your job, your safety, everything, for someone you didn't even know. I don't know how to thank you for that." She smiled, her eyes a little watery. "You just did." We became real friends after that. She's someone who understands what that day meant, what it took to make the choice she made. I sent her flowers on the anniversary of the flight every year. We text regularly, share pictures of our lives, and she's become like family to me. Last year, I helped her daughter get an internship at the consulting firm I eventually started. It felt good to give back to the person who'd given me my life. After my 3 months off, I knew I couldn't go back to working for someone else. I started my own security consulting business, specializing in helping companies identify internal vulnerabilities and protect against corporate espionage. My first major client was an airline company that wanted to improve their crew training on identifying suspicious passenger behavior and security threats. I worked directly with flight attendants, teaching them the same instincts Patricia had used. I showed them warning signs, taught them how to trust their gut, and gave them protocols for reporting concerns without causing panic. The work felt meaningful in a way my old job never did. I was turning my nightmare into something that could protect other people. The experience changed how I see the world. I'm more cautious now, more aware of my surroundings. I check my credit reports obsessively. I monitor my passport activity. I changed all my passwords and set up alerts for any unusual account activity. Some people might call it paranoia, but I call it being smart. I know firsthand how easily your identity can be stolen and used against you. But I'm also more grateful. Grateful for people like Patricia who choose to act instead of looking away. Grateful for my dad who dropped everything to be there for me. Grateful that I listened to that little voice in my head telling me to trust a stranger's warning. If you've stuck with me through this whole story, I want to ask you something. Hit that subscribe button and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. Hearing from you all means the world to me. I still fly regularly for my consulting work, though I'll admit the first few flights after the incident were hard. My hands would shake during boarding. I'd watch every passenger, looking for someone who seemed off. But it got easier. Now when I fly, I make a point to thank the flight attendants. I look them in the eye and tell them I appreciate what they do, because they're not just there to serve drinks and peanuts. They're trained professionals who are often the first line of defense when something goes wrong at 30,000 feet. They deserve more respect and recognition than they get. I keep Patricia's original note, the napkin that said, "Switch seats. Don't ask questions," framed in my home office. It sits right next to my college degree and my business license. Some people ask me why I keep it, why I'd want a reminder of something so traumatic. But to me, it's not a reminder of fear. It's a reminder of courage. It represents a stranger who saw danger and refused to stay silent, even when silence would have been easier and safer. It represents the best of what people can be when they choose to help instead of looking away. The lesson I learned isn't just about identity theft or corporate espionage. It's about trust. It's about listening when someone warns you about danger, even if you don't fully understand why. It's about acting on instinct when something feels wrong. Patricia had every reason to stay out of it. She could have told herself it wasn't her problem, that she didn't have enough information to act, that interfering might cause trouble. But she didn't. She chose courage over comfort, action over inaction, and that choice saved me from a nightmare I didn't even know I was walking into. I think about what would have happened if I'd stayed in seat 14B constantly. Derek would have tried to hand me that briefcase. Maybe he would have whispered instructions, or just left it behind when he got off the plane. Either way, I'd have been caught with stolen corporate data, fake passports, and cash when we landed in London. I'd have been arrested, charged with espionage, and spent years fighting charges while my reputation was destroyed. Linda's digital trail would have pointed straight to me. My emails, my travel records, my access to company systems, all manipulated to make me look guilty. By the time I proved my innocence, if I ever could, my life would have been over. But that didn't happen, because one flight attendant trusted her instincts, and one passenger trusted a stranger's warning. That's the difference between disaster and survival sometimes. One person who cares enough to act, and another person who's willing to listen. I'm Vanessa Mills, and I learned that the most important decision you ever make might happen in 10 seconds on a crowded airplane. Trust your instincts. Listen to warnings from people who have nothing to gain from helping you except knowing they did the right thing. Pay attention when something feels off, even if you can't explain why. And never underestimate the power of one person who refuses to stay silent when they see something wrong. That person might just save your life. I know one saved mine.